Everyone. My name is Andrea Burns, Director of Age Friendly Boston, an initiative within the City of Boston's Age Strong Commission. Celebrating what unites us is a partnership of our commission, the Armenian Heritage Park on the Greenway, and Oldways, a nonprofit inspiring people to embrace the traditional food of our ancestors. Today, we're going to be savoring the end of summer and are featuring New England heritage recipes with author Annie B. Kops. Annie has written 2 books, A Little Taste of Cape Cod and Little Local Maine, books that can be found on her website at intellibelly.net and independentbookstores.com. Annie will be available for the Q&A afterwards. We hope you enjoy the class. I'm going to turn it over to Annie. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm just absolutely thrilled to be here. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to talking about New England foods and the process of writing cookbooks, and what a thrill. So the first video was for the shrimp fritters with the herb dipping sauce. And that's from the Maine cookbook from little local Maine. And I learned that recipe. So I guess maybe I should back up the bus a little bit and tell you that for a long time, I worked at Oldways. I was the program manager at Oldways back in the early days of Oldways when we were really focusing on the Mediterranean diet. I went on to become the food editor at Boston Magazine after that, and then I was the food editor at Yankee Magazine. So I really feel like and I'm a New Englander, so I have a pretty strong foothold and grasp of New England foodways and New England food traditions and New England ingredients and New England seasons. So fast forward, the bus is now going forward. It's not backing up anymore. I was working on a story for Yankee Magazine in the early 2000s on sort of extraordinary places to have a meal. And I was on the Isle of Ho, or Haute, or however you pronounce it, Isle of Ho, which is one of the coastal islands, one of the many coastal islands in Maine. And I had this wonderful appetizer at the bed and breakfast that I was staying at. And it was a riff on these shrimp fritters that I have in the book. Super simple. Maine shrimp is different than shrimp anywhere else in the world. And it usually comes in the really cold months in January, February, March, and it's the little baby shrimp. And it's a labor of love to collect these shrimp. They're sweet and they're nutty, and they are part and parcel to coastal Maine living, and they're different. And so that's why I wanted to include that in the book. And that dipping sauce, you could put a sneaker in that dipping sauce and eat it, and it would be good. It's kind of like a green goddess. So if you weren't able to get all the ingredients from the cookbook that I suggest, you could certainly do whatever you wanted as a dipping sauce, but that one's particularly good. Did anybody have any questions about the shrimp fritters? No? So let's move on to the mussels. So the Cape Cod cookbook, both books are meant to be, this is the Cape Cod book. They're teeny, they're small but mighty, and the point of them isn't, it's not a compendium, an encyclopedia of all the foodways of Cape Cod or all the foodways of Maine. Sort of those regions in broad strokes. There is legit traditional recipes in these books, and there are some contemporary recipes in these books, but they're meant to be broad strokes, these regions. So I didn't live among the Wampanoag Indians for 3 years. I didn't stage in any restaurants on the Cape or in Maine. It just, from my experience, the part and parcel of my life and my research as a food writer. So the Cape Cod book, Cape Cod is a special part of New England, and it's a lot about the coastal ingredients and foodways of Cape Cod. But Cape Cod has a very big Portuguese community and a very big Jamaican community, and of course the indigenous people. So I wanted to make sure that the book recognized that, and that it's not just the day trippers in Falmouth or in Hyannis, and there's nothing wrong with the day tripping to the Cape, but it's not just lobster rolls and clam rolls. So the chorizo or the linguica recipe with the mussels is very traditional Portuguese food, and you get the salty brininess of the mussels and the fatty, salty spiciness of the sausage, and it's really terrific and heavenly. And then that crunch of the bread, you need that bread to soak up all the sauces. When you're buying mussels, some people like the large mussels, some people like the smaller mussels, some people like farm raised, which is a really great way to get mussels. There's no there's only a positive environmental impact, and they're not fed anything. They just grow on ropes and sort of swing freely. So they're not fed anything, or no antibiotics or anything like that. Anyway, so with mussels, I look for the freshest local mussels that I can get. And if you have an open mussel, when you buy them, you want to give it a tap. And if it doesn't close pretty quickly, then you don't want that mussel. And conversely, after you've cooked them, if it hasn't opened up, you don't want that mussel. So I hope that makes sense. Before cooking, you want them to, if they're open to shut, and after cooking, if they're shut, you don't want to eat them. Looking at the questions, for the shrimp fritters, if you can't get Maine shrimp, is there a good substitute? Yes. Fresh shrimp or shrimp that you buy from a trusted source. If you go to the fish counter at your grocery store and it doesn't smell very good, if it smells like ammonia, the ammonia of decay, not the ammonia of cleaning products, or if it's an offensive odor, maybe you shouldn't be buying your shrimp there. Most shrimp you're going to get here will be frozen this time of year, but ask for the shrimp and smell them, and they should smell briny and oceany, but not icky, unpleasant, if that makes sense. But frozen's perfectly fine. Lobster is a classic New England food. Can you tell us about your favorite ways to eat lobster? Oh, that's a great question. So yeah, both books have a lot of lobster in them, both books, especially the Maine book, because I think when we think about New England food, we think of lobster for certain, but when we think about Maine, we really think about lobster. And lobster in Maine is a really contentious, I guess, subject. So let's talk about a lobster roll. In Maine, you're going to steam your lobster. You don't boil a lobster in Maine. So you get a big pot and maybe 2 to 3 inches of water, depending on how many lobsters you're going to cook. And most people will say you want 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 pound, not much more than 2 pound lobster, because the feeling is that after 2 pounds or so, they're sort of tough. That means that they're older and you're going to have a tougher lobster. So they'd rather have several small lobsters than one large one. So 2 to 3 inches of water. If you can get rockweed, which is a kind of seaweed, rockweed is best. Usually if you buy lobsters, they'll put some rockweed in with your lobsters. Put the rockweed down, lobsters right on top, put a lid on it, and steam it, okay? That's the traditional Maine way. Cool it down, crack it open, get the lobster meat out. For the lobster roll, mayonnaise, possibly celery. I use just celery leaves. And when I say mayonnaise, just enough mayonnaise to hold it all together. Lettuce, and then a top-loading hot dog bun. And what I mean by that, it's split down the middle, not on the side. And you lightly butter and griddle or grill, toast the hot dog bun, lettuce, your lobster, and into your mouth. There was, as controversial as this book is not, there was controversy with the wonderful artist, Courtney Jensen, who did all the watercolors for it. And she, on the cover, there's a beautiful lobster roll, and next to it, she had a wedge of lemon. And I said, no, Courtney, there's no possible way. They'll come to my house with torches. No possible way to, no lemon with your lobster roll. What else do we have here? I'm looking at the questions. I'm multitasking. What is another regional dish under the radar that people from outside New England might not think about? So I think another regional ingredient that people outside the region might not think about, and I'm not sure about this, but I'm going to have to say potatoes. Potatoes, especially from Maine. If you think of Aroostook County in Maine, I think everybody thinks about potatoes, but I don't know that everybody thinks, I think in New England we think about Maine, but maybe if you're in Florida, you don't think of Maine potatoes. So when the Irish settlers came to Aroostook County, Maine, they learned straight away that that soil was great for growing potatoes. And if you have not had a Maine potato, especially a fresh Maine potato, you're really missing out. There are hundreds of varieties of potatoes, and they're all delicious. And I am of Dutch Irish heritage, and I like a canned potato. I like potatoes no matter literally how you slice them. And then someone has also mentioned clam chowder. So yes, I was on the Today Show, and I took on, there was a clam chowder contest, and I took on a New York chef, and the contest was, which is better, Manhattan or New England clam chowder? And truthfully, I felt sorry for the fellow, because it didn't matter if you had the best Manhattan chowder and I had the worst New England clam chowder. New England clam chowder is just better. Manhattan clam chowder is a tomato broth, and it's fine. But New England clam chowder, it's got bacon and the clams. I don't put very much cream in mine, just finish it off with the cream. I use the potatoes to help thicken everything up. But fresh clams and a little bit of thyme, it's amazing. There's no contest, the poor fellow. Anyway, so I did win the best clam chowder. So yay, New England. Susan Avery's asking, for the shrimp fritters, could you replace it with other fish or seafood? Absolutely, you sure can. I think that chopped scallops would be wonderful in that. I think that lobster would be great in the fritters. I think any whitefish, flaky whitefish would be great. Any suggestion for making the fritters for folks needing to watch their cholesterol? Any substitutions? Is that for the frying? And if it is, if you're concerned about it, or is it the dipping sauce? For the dipping sauce, I would say whatever dipping sauce you like. You could use an Asian chili honey may ploy. If it's for the frying of the fritters, I think that's a great question, because frying can be a much healthier method of cooking if it's done correctly. So you want to get your oil to the correct temperature, because if your oil is not hot enough, what happens is you put whatever it is that you're frying into the oil, and it just absorbs the oil. It'll kind of absorb it and then sink to the bottom. If you are cooking at the right temperature, you have almost as much oil left in the pan as when you started. The oil is meant to just surround and put a protective, crunchy, crispy. The whole reason that we fry in the first place is for that crunchy, crispy coating. So it'll seal the outside of whatever it is that you're frying, and then steam the ingredients on the inside. So if your oil is too cold, you're not going to get that seal. If the oil is too hot, it just burns the outside of it, and the inside of it never cooks. So when you fry, usually you start at about 375. And then when you put whatever it is that you're frying in the oil, the temperature will then drop down to about 350, 360. So, but if you are concerned about the dipping sauce, I would do an Asian dipping sauce, a soy and rice wine vinegar, ginger, garlic, or a may ploy, which is sort of a sweet and spicy chili honey sauce. What did you decide? How did you decide what to feature in your book? Oh, so, okay, thank you, Gail. So a great question. So for, it was sort of easy what to decide, because the books are so small. I only had about 50 pages. So for Cape Cod, I really wanted to first say, you know, what are the 12 iconic Cape Cod recipes? So clam chowder, lobster roll, scallops, Portuguese sweetbread. I'm trying to think, clam rolls are in there. I had to put a Cape Codder cocktail. Desserts, we have a blueberry recipe, we have an apple recipe. And then after that, I wanted to say, okay, so what are some of the communities on the Cape that are very important and are part and parcel to Cape Cod life? And so, of course, the Portuguese community. So important, and not just in Provincetown, but throughout the Cape, there's a very strong Portuguese community, the Italian community, the indigenous people of Cape Cod, and small pockets of French and Jamaican communities. So that was important to me. And then also contemporary. I didn't want it to be, you know, sometimes when we think about New England food, we think, oh, dusty, musty, and it's not. It's very, very exciting. You know, we have to look back to the old ways and take those old ways to where we are now, which is, of course, so much of what Oldways and the team do there. So we have to look to the past and bring it to the future, right? For the Maine book, same thing. You know, there were the iconic recipes of Maine. I had to get buckwheat ploys in there, whoopie pies in there, lobster, steamed lobster, and seafood chowder. I didn't want it to be completely the same recipes as the Cape Cod book. And oysters. Both books have oysters. And of course, the oysters in Maine are completely different than the oysters in Cape Cod. And I think an oyster, more than any other ingredient, if people talk about the terroir of grapes, let's talk about the terroir of oysters. An oyster is all about its provenance, the temperature of the water, the salinity of the water, the tides coming in and out, the plankton that comes in and out. It'll tell you exactly where it's from. And an oyster in, say, Katuitt Harbor on Cape Cod, one that's grown 500 yards away, will have a different shell shape and a completely different flavor. And they're all, except with a few exceptions of some Balan oysters that they're farming in Maine, they're all Crassula virginica. They're all the exact same species from Maine all the way down to Florida, of the same species of oyster. And they express themselves totally different. Like the Damariscotta River in Maine, it's a long, cold, briny river, and dotted along the river are tons of oyster beds, and every single one of them tastes and looks completely different. So anybody will tell you that. Where are we? Okay, how many fiddlehead ferns? Oh, what about fiddlehead ferns, which seems to be a Maine specialty? Any suggestions beyond traditional sauteed in butter? So fiddlehead ferns are those ferns that come out in the springtime, and they're one of the very first New England ingredients to poke their head out of the ground. And it really is a rite of passage, rite of spring, to collect fiddlehead ferns. You want to get them when they're still curled up, and they're called fiddleheads because they do look like the neck of a violin. And in French, in Montreal and all of the farmers markets up there in the spring, the tête de violin, the head of a violin, fiddlehead ferns. So in the book, I do suggest that they get a little saute in butter and salt, but I also love to pickle them. They're fantastic pickles. So just a simple vinegar, white vinegar, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of salt, and maybe some mustard seeds and fennel seeds and coriander seeds. Heat that up, make garlic, and then pickle them, and you'll have them, well into the winter. And a little secret, folks, how about a martini with a fiddlehead fern in there instead of an olive? I think that would be magnificent. Anyway, can you suggest a way to cook the mussels without the sausage? Oh, so the mussels are, I used to have this idea of opening a restaurant, and every time I started goofing around in my head and thinking about what the menu at this restaurant would be, there was always a mussels of the day. So I feel like you can cook mussels 7,942 different ways. And the recipe has, in the Cape Cod book, has sausage in it, the chorizo or linguica, for a little extra kick. But that recipe is perfectly fine, just omitting the mussels, no problem. Absolutely delicious. And in the Maine book, let's see if I can find this. Mussels, where's the mussels recipe? Mussels. In the Maine book, we have a mussels with garlic scapes, which is another, garlic scapes are, if you grow garlic, I'm not sure if you've seen them, but the almost like something out of Dr. Seuss, the garlic scapes come up and they curl around, and they're absolutely magnificent. Also great pickled, but the garlic scapes, and you could substitute scallions or leeks or onion in that roasted mussels recipe. Let's see, well, yes, the recording will be available for future reference. Oh, thank you, Andrea, talking about oysters. I'm crazy for oysters. Any New England vegetarian specialties? So yes, absolutely. There are lots of vegetarian recipes and vegetable-based recipes in both books. I mentioned potatoes, but let's talk about blueberries and the fruits of New England. Right now, I'd love to be in Maine collecting blueberries, and when blueberries are in season, it's all I want to eat. Corn, New England corn right now. If you're not eating corn, tomatoes, peppers, basil, I can't imagine what you could be eating, because that's all I can think about right now. Maine also grows quite a bit of beans, don't they? Yes, they do. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's for the baked beans, I have a baked bean recipe. There's a lot of controversy about which kinds of beans, cattle beans, Jacob's beans, and they're all good for the baked bean recipe. But yes, Maine does grow a lot of beans. Maine right now, and Cape Cod, all of New England, you know, dotting the seashore and the interior, you know, we're in a renaissance of farming, of small farming and farmers markets. And even with this pandemic, we're still able to support our local farmers. And Maine is unbelievable. It's difficult farming because it is a rocky soil. Most of New England has rocky soil, right? But they really produce unbelievable produce. So yeah, so Kathy is asking us why no lemon, and I'm assuming that's for the lobster roll. So it's believed that the lemon is not used because it will mask the flavor of the lobster. So the lobster roll is really all about as much sweet and nutty, fresh, briny lobster meat in that lobster roll as possible. And more controversy, if you cross the border, Massachusetts or Rhode Island to Connecticut, they do hot buttered lobster. And there you go. That is unacceptable in Massachusetts and Maine. Delicious, but unacceptable in our borders. Looking at your questions, what do any mussels without meat? Should the mussels be wide open after cooking? What if they're just peeking open? Oh, that's a great question. So should the mussels be wide open after cooking? What if they're just peeking open? What if you eat a mussel that hasn't opened? Well, Barbara, that's a great question. I think that if they're, you know, this is sort of a judgment call. If they're about a third of the way open, I'll sort of get in there with my hands, and I do like to eat mussels with my hands. And if it really is fighting me, like if it's too much resistance when I try and pry it open, then I don't take the chance. I put it in the bowl with the used shells, because what if you eat a mussel that hasn't opened? It might be all right, but it might not. And if you've ever experienced, well, don't eat bad seafood. Don't take the chance. And you know what? You know, mussels, when you get them, you know, for two people, or 2 or 3 people, you want to get 2 pounds of mussels with the shells on them. If you skip 1 or 2, you'll be just fine. You'll be just fine. But do skip them. How long do you steam the lobster? Says Robert. Well, it depends on how big the lobster is. I would steam a 1 1/4, 1.5 pound lobster for 8 to 10 minutes. Granola, this is the first time I've heard of heating the oil, maple syrup, and vanilla. What's the difference? That is actually an Oldways recipe, but that's a great technique. And if you watch the video, Hannah mixed the honey and the maple syrup and the vanilla and the oil. And what that does, it's easier to coat the oats that way. And you could not heat them beforehand. The recipe would still definitely work. What might we substitute sunflower seeds for in the granola? Well, this is, again, it's an Oldways recipe, but I make granola all the time. Almonds, walnuts, chia, sesame seeds, whatever you like. Granola is one of those completely flexible recipes that the ingredients are sort of a guideline. If you don't have maple syrup, you could use honey or agave, whatever you like. Olive oil doesn't have a high temperature possibility. Should you use avocado oil or grapeseed oil. So olive oil doesn't have a high temperature possibility. I don't want to go too far down the olive oil path, but you can deep fry in extra virgin olive oil. And we know that because for decades, there was only one kind of olive oil available throughout the Mediterranean, and that was extra virgin olive oil, because they, my Greek and Italian and North African and French friends had olive trees in their backyard that they sent to the communal press. They got their olive oil back. They didn't go to the store to buy canola oil or virgin or light olive oil, because they didn't have it. And when they fried and sauteed, all they used was extra virgin olive oil. So, people talk about the smoke point or that it breaks down. It's perfectly fine. You don't want to, you can't take it up to 500 degrees, but it's perfectly fine for sauteing, deep frying, and absolutely for granola. What clams are used for batter frying? So that's up to you. MB is asking about clams. You can use bellies or strips. And again, that's a controversy. Some people will say sea clams that are chopped up. Some people will say only clam strips or only clam bellies. It's totally up to you. Totally and completely up to you. My goodness, all these great questions. Is air frying an option for the fritters? Says Salpy. That's a great question. I don't have a lot of experience with an air fryer, but I'm hearing nothing but great things about them. So Salpy, why don't you be our astronaut on this, our canary in the coal mine, and take that out for a test spin and let us know how it goes. Should. I grew up with a boiled Maine potato with every meal, says Mary. Good for you, Mary. Lucky you. How about fiddlehead ferns, which seem to be a Maine specialty? Any suggestions? Oh, we talked about that one. Oh, 10 new messages. I'm multitasking here. A Maine friend once said, those New Yorkers are not dumb at putting tomatoes in their clam chowders. They're smart for putting clams in their tomato soup. I love that, Paula. Hysterical. Sarah asked, do you have a favorite recipe in each book? That is a great question, Sarah. Thank you. It's sort of, sometimes it's a seasonal favorite. Sometimes it's, I think about the process of writing the books and which one was one of my favorites, when I was writing them. Right now, the Cape Cod book, I have to say the lobster roll recipe that's in there, it's the same one that's in the main book. I really do like that recipe a lot, and it's easy. I'm not doing a lot of home entertaining right now, but I have gone to a few picnics where we're, bringing portions of food and giving them sort of in baskets to our friends. And I brought a few lobster rolls, and it just makes everybody so happy from the Cape Cod book. That is making me happy. And I just noticed my kitten ran behind. Don't worry, I don't have mice running around. From the main book, the shrimp fritter recipe that you saw today really is a favorite. It's the corn is in season, it's crunchy and it's crispy, and then that dipping sauce, it's decadent, but it really is delicious. And of course, whoopie pies, a Maine classic, and it's just fun to say. Whoopie! Sarah posted the blog that explains more about olive oil and clears up some of the myths. That's great, Sarah, super helpful. Unrelated to the discussion, what's your cat's name? Oh, thank you, Maria. That's Hadley, and Hadley is 5 months old, and she is, I adopted her through the Northeast Animal Shelter. My friend Nicole fostered her, and her oldest daughter, Hadley, who is a senior in high school, really took care of her the most. So she's named after her foster mom, Hadley. Any substitute for oat bran in your granola? Boy, I guess you could use puffed rice. That's a great question. Any thoughts on that? Someone jump in here and help me out with that question. Substitute for oat bran for the granola. Again, the first thought that comes to mind would be a puffed rice or puffed farro. That would be nice. Do you have a favorite recipe? I mean, let's see, I'm still looking at your questions. Multitasking. Somebody asked, not in this stream of questions, but they asked, how did it come about to write the books? Well, I have to tell you, during my years when I was really focusing on journalism, these days I do still write a lot, and I'm working on another book. When I was full-time in journalism, though, I probably pitched 7 or 8 cookbook and novels to various publishers and agents, and they all said, "Oh, that's nice, but no, we don't think." "Oh, that's a great idea, but." For these 2 books, a woman named Leslie Jonath came to me. She's with Connected Dots Media. She was with 10 Speed Press for many years, the great publisher out in California. And she put together a series of New England cookbooks. And we started with Cape Cod, and then the Maine book was second, and hopefully we'll continue with the series. There's also a little local Vermont, which just came out this summer by Melissa Passanen, which is a wonderful book about Vermont. So that's how it happened. I wish I could tell you that this was my idea. I was able to write both of these books with, I wouldn't say it was an easy process, but it was not terribly laborious for me because, again, I'm a New Englander. I've spent a lot of time on the Cape and in Maine, and I sort of already knew about it, and I had hundreds of recipes already on file, so I just sort of had to retest them and format them, and hopefully you'll enjoy them as well. Again, they're sweet, they're teeny, small but mighty, filled with traditional recipes and non-traditional recipes, but they all are part and parcel to the Maine and Cape Cod experience. Can you remind us? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to ask, can you remind us where we can find your cookbooks?
Yes, thank you. So you can get them in most New England bookstores, most of the great independent bookstores on the Cape, Brewster Bookstore for sure. In Maine, Sherman's has both books, I believe. You could go to my website, intellibelly.net, and order them. Or go to, if you don't mind, independentbookstores.com and support a local bookstore. You can order it online and they'll send it to you. If that's not your jam and you need to go to one of the big online book shops, that's fine too. But I really appreciate your support. Okay, that's relating back. Unrelated, oh, that's the cat question. All right. If anyone has any more questions, that would be great. I just want to say, right now, so many fresh ingredients are available in our supermarkets, but also our local farmers markets and farm stands and all of that. And if you can eat in season, especially during right now when everything is just burgeoning and waiting and ready to go. Do that. It's better for you. It's better for the planet. And I hope my books will inspire you to do just that. But there are lots of recipes out there. And again, if you're not eating corn, tomato, basil, peppers, and eggplant right now, I don't know what you're eating. Barbara, what are you eating these days?
Oh my gosh.
I caught you off guard.
And actually, I have to tell you, I have been influenced by this series, influenced by Oldways. So hopefully these days, eating much better than normally. So how's that? But we want to thank you very much. Just spirited and lively and engaging, and our many thanks to you. And your cookbooks, I have no doubt that they're going to be flying off the shelves.
Oh, I hope so.
And to all of you, and we have a chance to meet. Oh, what a love! Oh, hello, hello.
She was climbing up my leg, so I had to pick her up.
Oh, enjoy. But to everyone joining us this morning, thank you so very much. This series is a way to keep us connected, coming together. We're all looking forward to when we can all be together once again at the park. But in the meantime, what a wonderful way with spirited and energetic and accomplished people sharing what they love and what they do well. So our thanks to Age Friendly Boston, Andrea Burns and her team, and to Oldways, Sarah and Hannah and their team, and to each of you joining us this morning. We'll keep you posted on the upcoming programs, and we'll send links to order your book and your recipes shortly.
Oh,
How's that?
Thank
Will
you
you
so
keep
much.
us? Will you keep us?
Attacked. Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
And
that's joy. That's love. And
it
that's
is love. It is love.
that
She
is
wants to be on. She wants to be on the webinar.
absolutely.
No, but it was an honor and a pleasure. And thank you to Sarah and Hannah and the team at Oldways as well, and to Barbara and Andrea. This really is an absolute pleasure. And as much as this was my opportunity to talk about my books, it's always a pleasure to talk about food and cooking. So I'm looking forward to the next webinar, and thank you all for the hard work that you do.
Well,
and
thank
everybody
you.
who participated.
Thank you very much for being a part. We are very grateful and honored. Everybody enjoy your day, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Annie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.